All right, thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Keating, and I am an assistant professor, and I'm the associate director for speaking at the Fashion Institute of Technology's Writing and Speaking Studio. And I see we have a good group here in the call, and I'm wondering if we can just kind of go around and if you can drop into the chat the reason why you chose to attend this talk. Okay, great. So I got a couple responses here. Alexandra, thank you. Say you like Prezi and this was the best option at this time. That works for me. Thank you. Todd says, I'm interested in Prezi as an alternative presenting platform. And Timothy says that the topic sounds interesting and would like to know more about Prezi video. So that's great. Thank you all for being here. I really do appreciate it. As you may have read in my abstract, and as you can see on my first slide right here, I'm here today to have a conversation with you, hopefully, about a newer Prezi extension called Prezi Video that I'd like to propose as an effective vehicle for facilitating dynamic and meaningful speech and oral presentation self-critiques, which are a really integral part of the public speaking learning process for both new speakers and experienced public speakers. What you've not read, however, is that I'd also like to talk to you about a couple free alternatives to using Prezi Video, because for the application of Prezi that I'm talking about today, that would cost about $3 per month with an official student or faculty email address. So let's build to that, though. Although let's see, sorry, I'm having trouble switching slides here. There we go. So although my full-time role at FIT is as a non-classroom faculty member, I'm also currently serving as an adjunct faculty in the English and Communication Studies department. And I come from a teaching intensive full-time background at the North Carolina Community College system, in which I used to teach 6 to 9 sections of public speaking, interpersonal communication, and also intercultural communication each semester. And for the public speaking classes, which was the class that I taught the most of, my students were required to give 4 to 5 speeches per semester. And for every single speech that they gave, they were also required to write a self-critique. So in my experience and in my opinion, the self-critique is one of the most powerful learning tools that we have available to us when it comes to public speaking and presentations. Although giving a speech can go a long way in helping students to develop competency and confidence in their public speaking, it's really the reflection and the choices that students make for their next speech based on that reflection that I think really allows them to advance. Also, speech critiques give students a chance to think critically about their own work and talk critically about their own work, as opposed to just simply accepting a grade from a professor with or without any added feedback. So when a student can see their strengths and areas for improvement themselves, they're better able to maintain and or work on them. Now, unfortunately, despite the fact that self-critiques are extremely important, they don't always work out exactly as we hope that they do. So there are a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is due to us, some faculty error. I don't think that we often frame the self-critique as being as important of an assignment as it is. It's often kind of just a turn it in and forget it sort of situation. And this is something that was the case for me when I first started out as a faculty member. I was worried about just getting all the speeches scheduled. And then once I got that done, and once all the speeches were given, this was just kind of something I tried to fit into the schedule at the end. Other times, even when the assignment is designed and deployed with best intentions, students can kind of undercut the effectiveness of the reflection by writing only what they believe the professor wants to hear, or even repeating the notes back that they received along with their grades. Lastly, students don't always go back to review their speeches before writing the critique, which can really limit the effectiveness. If they're working on memory alone, oftentimes we remember our speeches being much more successful or much worse than it actually was. And really, some students can't even go back to their work. It's not an option because speeches aren't recorded in their classrooms. So I think that we're pretty much on the same page here, and that the speech critique is an integral part of the speech learning process, but it's not necessarily always done in the best way. So this is where my proposed application for Prezi Video comes into play. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain what Prezi Video is as an extension to Prezi. I'm going to provide an overview of my assignment, which I'm calling Record, Review, and Revise, and talk a little bit about how this assignment helps us avoid those pitfalls that I just mentioned. And lastly, although I feel that Prezi Video offers us the best technological options for completing this sort of work, I will offer some free alternatives because I think that it's a hard ask to have students buy yet another thing, even if it is just $3 a month. So Prezi Video. Prezi Video is a groundbreaking program, really, that, as Prezi support describes it, puts you right alongside your content as you live stream or record. Now, more specifically, what this means is that Prezi can do a lot of things, but it can do two really important kind of novel things with this program. One is that it allows you to use the desktop version of the program as a browser extension that displays your graphic Prezi content, charts, graphs, videos, slides, alongside you as you speak in your live presentation on any video conference platform. So that includes Zoom, WebEx, Google Meet, and GoToWebinar. And if you're having trouble kind of thinking about what that looks like, you can imagine some SNL Weekend Update style graphics that actually pop up right next to you in your little box on Zoom or Google Meet. You're not sharing your screen, so you still get to see everybody in the audience. It's just graphics that come up and you can click right through them as you deliver that live content. Two, the second thing that Prezi Video does that is pretty novel is that it functions as a standalone video recorder. Now, with the free plan, you can incorporate those above mentioned graphic Prezi contents as a second layer of your message live. So again, as you're recording a message, you can have graphic content pop up next to you as you're speaking to reinforce what you're saying. With the paid plan, you can import existing videos and play them frame within frame, making live comments and adding Prezi graphics. So for this assignment, we are focused on that paid plan and on the second function. So again, it's $3 a month, and I will discuss some free alternatives in a bit, but that's the one that we're focused on here. So Record, Review, and Revise, the self-critique assignment. I'm going to talk about the basic gist of it, and then I would like to go through the assignment steps. So the basic gist of the assignment is that students will upload a recording of themselves to Prezi Video and use sections of it as they deliver a live recording, which they'll be able to add commentary to with voice, text, and various graphics. Then this can be exported as a finished video that has the student commenting on their videos, the originally recorded speech live within the presentation. So at this point, I'll go through the steps of the assignment: record, review, and revise. Record. At this point, you want to choose a speech assignment for the semester, or all of them if you're feeling daring, and let your students know that they will be completing a self-critique after they deliver their presentation. Now, in order for this assignment to work, you will need to record student speeches and provide them with MP4 copies of those speeches afterward. So whether this is an individual speech or a group speech, formal speech, or even an impromptu presentation, all of that works as long as you're able to record it. Another option is to have the students record it themselves, maybe have a friend use their cell phone to record. But the MP4 note is important because that is the file type that works best with Prezi and is able to be imported really very easily. Review is that next step. This analysis begins with the recorded video. This is kind of the standard speech critique. Students should be asked to review their videos from start to finish, taking notes along the way about what they feel is working very well in their speech, and also what they feel they would like to improve. Now, I recommend that they mark the time for each note that they make for later reference. As the professor, you have some options here. First, you can keep the review open-ended. You can ask the students for their gut impressions of their work. And I think this is really great because asking students to talk about their work in this way allows them to think outside the box and also think outside your expectations. And they don't often do that with the standard speech critique. You can also get specific if you want to make sure that students are thinking about particular concepts or meeting certain course objectives or industry expectations, which is very important at FIT. Then you can outline which expectations you'd like them to talk about within their critique. The point is that there are a lot of different options at this part of the process. In my current speech rubrics, I focus on introductions, conclusions, explorations of the primary topic, relevance and credibility. So relevance and credibility, that's what my students really struggle with, is explaining why a topic is important to a specific audience, and credibility, why they're a good source of information to deliver that information. And this is an area that I would ask them to focus on as they're taking their notes. Again, going back, watching that recorded video, and just commenting on what they think is going well and where they think they could use some work. So all that's pretty traditional at this point. But then we get to the revise and critique step. Once students have watched their videos and taken notes on their performance, it's time for them to import the video to Prezi Video and get started. Students should download the Prezi Video desktop app and import from there. They can import the video or different sections of the video, and it pops right up to them on their live screen as they record. At this time, using the many options that Prezi Video has to offer, students can comment on their strengths and areas for improvement in their presentation using text, GIFs, stickers, pictures, and even their voice. Each one of these graphics serves as another kind of slide of sorts that the student is able to click through as they're delivering their live information. So as they are pulling the videos in and adding these stickers and kind of curatorial notes, you can imagine that the video in the end will look something like this. Your student is on the screen and explaining that in this video, they'll be talking about what they consider to be their strengths and weaknesses. Maybe they have two each. And alongside your student, up pops a frame within frame video of the first 30 seconds of their speech, the introduction. They introduce this as their first strength, and they can actually play the video while they are there live reacting to it. The video frame then disappears and a GIF of a beaming emoji appears in its place with the text, "Wow, good job," underneath. The image then disappears and the students talk briefly about what they liked about that introduction, what was working so well. After going over their next strength, maybe your student says they'll now cover a few areas they'd like to improve. This time, next to them, a chart pops up, a chart that they used as a reference in their PowerPoint for their presentation. The student says that they practically skipped right over it in the speech without explaining anything, and maybe an awkward face GIF appears for a second time before the chart pops back up. At this point, the student says what they'd wish they had said and talks about how they'll transition in and out of using charts differently in their next speech. Now, I think that this is kind of hard to imagine without some examples. So I've included some screen grabs from my own computer to show you a bit what this looks like. I included the screen grabs rather than a video so that you could see what the student's perspective is on this side of Prezi video. So this in the middle here is a presentation that I gave and I was able to import into Prezi video. On the left-hand side is me kind of reacting to that video. The recording is going to be live and has me reacting live to the video that I can play in the recording. Next, stickers, GIFs, any type of image that the student wants to bring in. There are plenty of them in Prezi itself, but also the student can use their own images and any of their own documents to pull in. They can pull up the image again or the video again, play a different section of it, and focus in on something else. So for example, maybe they want to talk about the fact that they really needed to make much more eye contact in that presentation than they had. Once the students record these videos all together, it's pretty easy for them to get it to their professor. They can share it from their Prezi account, or they can even upload it to YouTube and send the link. Now, although this assignment can certainly end there, you can also pull it out and extend it by having students present all or parts of these videos in class. You can post them to your LMS, have students watch them and react to them as part of an extra credit. Or if you're short on time, you can have students do a pair and share in class to talk about the process. Now, to be clear, the point of this assignment is not for the students to be stressed out about giving another speech or creating some polished, formal, or serious recording. These videos can and maybe should be a little bit silly. It's the kind of embarrassing screen grabs that I pull up here. The point is that you are getting their first impressions. You're getting their mistakes. You're getting their personalities involved, and you're getting a real self-critique. They are looking at the images, or sorry, they are looking at the recording again, and that is major. So at this point, you may be wondering why all this work is worth it, and why this sort of critique is any more effective than something that is just handed in the day after the speech or the week after the speech. And for that, I'd like to go back to some of those pitfalls that we talked about before. First, I said that sometimes the issue is that professors fail to emphasize the importance of the speech critique assignment and treat it like a simple pass or fail kind of work that can be turned in and forgotten. This assignment very much emphasizes the importance of the critique, not only from the perspective of the professor, but from the perspective of the student. The amount of time and effort that's being required here makes it clear to students that this is an integral part of the speech learning process. And it's not just an annoying task to do. Linking their findings or their observations to the way that they plan to approach their next speech is extremely helpful and can show them, again, why this is something that matters, why reflection on their writing and speaking matters. Personally, I would rather require less speeches in my class and incorporate robust critique assignments than max out the semester with presentations that the students don't have time to reflect on and learn from. That being said, we don't always have that luxury. Second, I said that other times when the assignment is designed and deployed with best intentions, students can still undercut the effectiveness of the reflection by writing only what they believe their professor wants to hear, or even parroting back what the professor said in the graded feedback. Now, although we can't guarantee that a student won't write what they think we want to hear, an assignment like this one that emphasizes their voice should encourage them to think for themselves. This works best when students are required to review and revise before receiving feedback from their professor. That way they're not parroting what was written on their notes, and in the best possible circumstances, professors can even reference the students' notes and observations in their feedback that comes a little bit later. Third, I said that students don't always go back to review their speeches before writing the critique, which certainly can limit the effectiveness of the exercise. For this assignment, going back to the speech is unavoidable. In order to add any substantive commentary that makes any sense, a student will have to go back and watch the speech. And this act alone is hugely powerful. When they see what they're doing well, they can be proud of it, they can maintain it, they can build on it. And when they see what they're needing work on, they can really think about how to approach that task, or they can know to talk about that specific thing with their professor, their peers. Now, as I said at the beginning, there's a limitation here, and that is that unfortunately, this one element of the Prezi video platform is behind a paywall. So this is about $3 per month with a valid educational institutional email address for students or faculty. But there are other options to create these sorts of video critiques using Google Slides and Microsoft PowerPoint. So Google Slides, you can imagine you can pull bits of your video onto different slides, make commentary, use different graphical elements to react to the work. And then you can use something like Screencast-O-Matic or Loom or Camtasia to record a narration of those slides. And it gives you basically the same sort of outcome. Microsoft PowerPoint actually has an option right within the program to turn the presentation into a video, which again, all of those are free. So as you can tell, this assignment concept is still a work in progress. I usually bring very finished, very complete assignments, gifts to conferences, but I thought it might be interesting to bring this one to you today. One that still has a lot of room to be adapted and personalized and experimented with by you. I've tried out the mechanics for myself, and I intend to put it to work in my small group communication course this fall. So I'll be troubleshooting and listening to students' experiences and then adapting for the next semester. But I'd also love to hear what you think now or what you think later. If you end up using some version of this assignment in one of your classes, I would love you to reach out to me. My email is here on the screen, and I'd like to talk about your experience. So I really do appreciate you listening to me today, and hopefully at this point we can take a couple questions or have a bit of a discussion. So I'm seeing I did get a couple questions here. So Claudia, will we get an access to handout with instructions? I am happy to do that for you. If you drop your email address into the chat here, I can send that out to you. And anyone else who's interested in a handout, I'm happy to do that for you as well. And if you'd like, I can send a bit of a sample video as well. Kathleen likes the alternative strategies and could give students a choice. Yeah, I think that that's really important. Some students may already have a Prezi contract and they're able to use this very easily. Some may be very willing to spend the $3 and get to use the program, but you can certainly use Slides or Microsoft PowerPoint and get, again, something very similar. So that's a good point. Thank you, Claudia. I appreciate that. She said, that would be great. So inspired by how you use Prezi for this. So Todd's asking about accessibility within the Prezi platform. Can captions, et cetera, be added? So yes, they can be added. I think it is something like with YouTube where they can be auto-generated, but I think you would have to go back and edit. I don't think that they always come out right the first time. That's a really great question. That's something that I'm going to have to experiment with coming this semester. If you have any information, anyone else in the group, please feel free to drop it in the chat here. How much technical assistance did you find yourself doing? So Kathleen, this is an idea that I'm putting together and trying out for myself and will be using this coming fall, but I anticipate a lot of technical assistance. That being said, what I think will really help and what I'm going to do is provide them with a sample video. I'm also going to be comparing it to something that a lot of people are very used to seeing now on platforms like TikTok and Facebook, which is like somebody reacts a video. So it's like an influencer of some kind watching a video and reacting to it. And if the student has options to record a video like that in a slightly different way, I'd be open with that too. Again, the point of this assignment isn't necessarily that they follow my instructions word for word or that they use the technology exactly how I'm asking them to, but really that they get a chance to look at their speech and think critically about it and learn how to talk about it too. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes, I spoke a little bit about accessibility in terms of captions, but Todd, if there are any specific questions that you have regarding accessibility for the platform, I can try to speak on that as well. Kathleen says, I missed that as I came in late. Yes, giving a model is great, and the influencer model rocks. So, yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. I'm kind of new to that this person reacts sort of video, but if anyone isn't or isn't familiar with that, I would say take a look. That might give you some inspiration for what these sorts of videos can look like. They can be short, they can be fun, they can be kind of goofy, but and maybe most importantly, they can be creative and in a not stressful way to get some really great work done. Does anybody else have any questions or even some ideas about how they may stretch this assignment to work within their sort of subject? So I teach communication studies, but if anyone teaches something very different or similar, how are you thinking you might be able to use a model like this? Yeah, I think curating their own content, as you've described, Kathleen says, it works well across menus. I agree. And I think there are some interesting things you can do with these finished products. I'm not sure how many of you use a portfolio for your students, something that they can add to as the semester goes or as they work their way through the program that they're in. But something like this would be great to um, put in the beginning of that portfolio and then at the end of the class or with each speech, put a new one in. The students can reflect on how they've progressed over a semester. That can be fuel for an interesting final paper as well or final video. Lisa says we have a student project showcase that uses video presentation. Yeah, I think that's great. So anything that can really showcase some student work is excellent. At FIT, the Writing Speaking Studio, I created something called the Speech Archive, which is a video archive that hosts lots of different types of public speakers speaking in a whole lot of different ways, all very successfully. And my goal is to have some students on there too, not just speaking in the traditional ways, but also some of these new ways of online reaction videos, streaming, and things along those lines. I think a lot belongs in that public speaking category that maybe traditionally we don't think belongs there. Yes. So Kathleen says creating authentic reasons for students to view and use their peers' work is another essential component. Yeah, I think giving an authentic reason for almost every assignment that we do is so key, especially when working with non-traditional students. I have found in my experience that they want to know why they're doing the assignment that they're doing. It's not enough that it's busy work, and it shouldn't be. So if we're able to kind of show very clearly why this assignment is important and how it can be used to fuel the next assignment, to fuel any development or progress is really a key thing. That's a good point. Yeah, the so what factor essential. Thank you, Kathleen. Does anybody else have any questions for me or anything that they'd like to discuss in the group regarding how they might use a project like this? Will they license their work? Are you talking about Prezi, or are you talking about the students and what they would do with their videos? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure what the right answer for that would be, um, but that would definitely be something interesting to look into, and I will. I'm just looking through to make sure I didn't miss any other questions or comments here. Jennifer says, I used it in a graduate class for group projects. I found it very easy to use and a little more fun than PowerPoints or Google Slides. Yeah, I think that that is the case. Students really get into Prezi. Oddly enough, earlier in my career, I asked students not to use Prezi. Maybe it was the older computers that I was using at the school, not my current institution, but Prezi seemed to slow things down. But now it's really advanced, and it's something that can make standard slide presentation much more dynamic. Now that we're spending so much more time online in these sorts of settings, I think it's important that we can go beyond the basics and do something that will get the attention of the viewer. Yeah, I think students do love the Prezi cool factor. Kathleen, thank you. Um, is there anyone else? I know what I teach, but what areas do all of you teach in that you think would apply here, or what types of oral presentation projects do you require in your courses? Yes. Yeah, Kathleen, that's a good point too. It's a vehicle for teaching ownership through image use. And I'd add to that, it's a really great opportunity to start discussing the need for oral citations and talking about how to incorporate those into your presentations. It's not just the in-text citation and the references page at the end. How do you make your audience know what information is yours and what information is from somebody else? Alexander says, giving learners options in how they make their thinking and learning visible in online environments is very important. Yeah, I think so too. More options, the better. I think in these spaces, especially when you have an online class and there's limited interaction. If maybe an asynchronous class, uh, for the student to be able to approach an assignment in multiple ways that tie back to their learning style is excellent. So Lisa teaches business case studies, management practices to solve a problem. That's really interesting. I think oftentimes when we talk about presentations, we think about something that's very formal and very finished when we deliver it. But there's something to be said about watching the student be able to think through problems on their feet in the moment. I think that would be a kind of a cool application, is for them to take a look at a case study and then talk through it on a Prezi video sort of platform. Kathleen G says it's too easy to fall into the trap of doing face-to-face presentations that disappear into hot air. So creating content like this is so critical for 21st century citizens. Yeah, absolutely. I think, with face-to-face presentations, whether they're good or they're bad, at the end they're done and there's really no trace of them. But when we are presenting in the online space, things are either being recorded or they're recorded ahead of time to be shared, and that's the initial way they're being shared. So knowing what their shelf life is, and knowing what that means, and knowing how to create a lasting message that you can be proud of and comfortable with is definitely a good conversation to be having, not only in a public speaking class, but any sort of class. Again, I mentioned FIT has a lot of really industry specific courses, and that's a great opportunity for faculty to be able to talk to their students about specific expectations for the industry and these sorts of presentations that are kind of going out into the world. Simone says, my graduate students have to write a research paper using data analysis and do an oral presentation to present the scientific findings to a lay audience. That's really interesting. And that's a really difficult thing to do, to communicate about something scientific in a way that is compelling and understandable to an audience. I think that would be a really kind of fun one for the students to be able to record and then go back and think about how they can boost that delivery a little bit, either to meet your course expectations or industry expectations or whatever your course objectives are. Kathleen says, I have future teachers build their approach to doing homework in their classrooms. This is a way to have my students do something other than write their procedures. Yeah, I think that's a fun one too. Education courses would be a great application area for a project like this one, um, even just for the sake of being able to talk these things out. Like I mentioned toward the end of this project, there is the option to have your students pair and share with these recordings afterward. Again, they're not polished, they're not necessarily serious. It's just an opportunity to take them out and show a peer what it is you're thinking, how you're working through whatever the class is working on at that moment, or however you are kind of independently choosing to approach a specific project in the class or something like that. Um, I think that would be a really interesting thing for teacher education. And it would be more transferable for families in their future careers. Interesting. So Alexandra says, here's a model I created for presenting research results. Thank you. I will pull that up. I'm interested in that. Hi. Sure. Absolutely. So, thank you everybody for such an interesting conversation at the end here. Thinking about different ways that we can use this project is exciting to me, and I will copy and paste this discussion forum. I have all your email addresses, and will contact you with some more information over the next few days. So, thank you again. I really appreciate talking to you.